Hello and welcome. My name is Martin and welcome to a new video. Now today I'm going to be sharing 5 lesson activities that you could incorporate with your online lessons to make them more engaging and more interesting for students. Now, one of the difficulties with online teaching is actually developing that interest and engagement within a remote environment. The students aren't necessarily in the same country or region, and they're only accessing the course by their laptop or mobile phone. If you're in a face-to-face environment, it's quite simple and quite easy, and we've picked up a load of techniques to ensure that students are engaged and committed to learning. Unfortunately, with the distance involved, it's very difficult to tell whether students are actually interested or if they're actually developing and engaging with the lesson activities. Now, before we begin, if you haven't subscribed already, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you'll be notified when I upload a new video. And also Okay, so the first lesson activity that I'd recommend is doing student presentations or teachings. Now this requires a little bit of preparation on the student, and essentially what you could do at the end of the first lesson is tell students by the end of the week they're going to be presenting to each other on a particular topic. It could be either sports or activities or hobbies, and students have to prepare a presentation. It could be a Jamboard, it could be a normal PowerPoint presentation, or it could be a variety of other presentation web software, I guess. Students will have to develop the presentation skills, and you could pre-teach presentation language. And essentially what you're asking students to do is to present to each other about, let's say, a hobby that they like to do in their free time. Now, rather than just you presenting about your hobbies and interests, you could demonstrate that, but then get the students to do and prepare a presentation for the end of the week. I find this activity quite engaging, and the students are quite keen to actually prepare a presentation and do something. It's something that is not really done, unfortunately, but it's something nice to incorporate and get students to participate in the lesson. While students are presenting and the other students are listening, you could ask students to grade presentation language and try and tick off certain language which was used either in the introductions or through signposting and various other things. This will demonstrate student awareness of language, and it will also consolidate what you've The second activity is online Dictogloss. Now, I really enjoy doing Dictogloss in the classroom, but unfortunately I've had to adapt it for an online environment. But I've seen it actually do quite well, and the students are quite keen and engaged during this activity. Essentially, if you're unsure what Dictogloss is, it's basically where you grab a passage of text and you ask the students to listen to what you read out loud first of all. Tell the students not to write anything down, not to translate, not to transcribe anything, but just to listen to the body of text that you're reading at normal speed. Once you've read it out, then you say to students, I'm going to read it again, but this time I just want you to hear and write down just the nouns that are mentioned. You read it again at normal speed, and the students individually write down just the nouns that are mentioned. Again, I read it, then I ask the students to just write down the verbs which are mentioned. The students write down the corresponding verbs. I read it again, and then I tell students just write down any adjectives you hear, and the students just write down the adjectives. And then finally I say I'm going to read it one more time, and any other words that you heard and you're not sure whether they're nouns, verbs or adjectives, just put it in another column. I read it one more time, and then I get the students to compare what they've written down or transcribed based on my dictation. I put the students into groups and I ask them to reconstruct the text. Once the text is reconstructed, I then get the students to try and work out which text is or student text in this case, is nearest to the original. I then share the original text with the students and I ask them what sort of differences are there between what they've written and what is in the text. And it's a really, really interesting activity for students to work individually initially and then together and then to build up a body of text. For this activity, I tend to share a Google Drive, a spreadsheet on Google Drive, and get the students to write down all the vocabulary and then construct the text on a group spreadsheet. I've used this activity with pre-intermediate students and above, and it is a very challenging activity and it does take quite a while. But once the students are aware of what's expected of them and you've done this activity once, then they'll be primed and ready. The third activity is something that I tend to do with my one-to-one students quite regularly, and it's jumbled sentences. It's something which is usually incorporated into a physical classroom where you get a body of text and you cut it down sentence by sentence or line by line, and I say to the students, try and reconstruct the text. And then if there's a listening activity, which invariably there is for this, I ask them to listen to see how they've unjumbled the sentences. It's a really interesting activity. It develops students' awareness of punctuation, signposting, and various other things in English. Again, it can be prepared quite quickly with minimal preparation, and I tend to share this in a Google Drive with individual students. Sometimes it's a great idea to highlight particular language which students find difficult, and for them to find alternative definitions or to match definitions to key language from the text itself as a sort of post-activity unjumbling task, I guess. This task itself can be incorporated with song lyrics, basic readings, or a paragraph of reading, and develops learner awareness of Now, the fourth activity is something that I've incorporated again in a physical classroom, but I've also had to adapt it within an online environment. And this one is Kahoot quizzes. Kahoot quizzes is a great opportunity for students to engage and get interested in particular topics. I've used Kahoot quizzes for either reviewing grammar or reviewing particular topics based on what's been studied. You can either create your own Kahoot quiz, and it does take a little bit of preparation, maybe half an hour to an hour to prepare your own Kahoot quiz, or invariably you can search for particular topics or particular language points that you want to look at. There's already a lot of resources on Kahoot where you can search for either British food or pre-intermediate grammar or prepositions of space or time, etc. And someone has already created a Kahoot quiz based on what you want to look at. Essentially what students need is either an app on their phone and to download the Kahoot app, or they need access online through a web browser to Kahoot. When you create and share a Kahoot quiz, there's usually a PIN number which the students input either into their phone or on the web browser. And then once you have your whole class working together and competing with each other on a Kahoot quiz, it makes it a lot more enjoyable, engaging, and entertaining as well. It's usually a great activity at the end of the lesson, perhaps the last 15 minutes or so, and it's great for students to feel that they've really enjoyed their online lesson and that they've actually learnt something. The final online lesson activity that I'm sharing with you today is student Webquests. Again, I've done this in a physical classroom where individual students are provided with either tablets or laptops, and you give a task for students, a real life task for them to complete. You could say to students, okay, group one, you're going to be working together and you're going to try and work out and plan a weekend holiday to Bristol. Group two, I want you to plan a weekend holiday to Edinburgh. And group 3, I want you to plan a weekend holiday to Brighton. Then you give the students 10 to 15 minutes to find accommodation, find restaurants and things to do within those individual cities, and for them to report back. And you could either give them a budget for this, like real life task, and then give them various websites that they could use and reference in terms of this project, or real life Webquest, I guess. It's a really engaging activity, a real life activity which students start to recognise, and then they're actually negotiating with each other, browsing particular websites and then reporting back or presenting what they found, what they discovered, what they could do in each of the different cities. And once the students are sharing this with each other as a class, everybody's learning about these different places and what they could do in these different places. Okay, there we have it. So thank you ever so much for getting to the end of this video. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up, hit the notification bell and subscribe if you haven't already. And also leave a comment. Let me know that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions at all, please comment below. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. And if you have any suggested activities, then why not share them? It'll be great to hear from you as well. I'll see you in a future video. Take care, stay safe, and you know the drill. Happy teaching. Bye bye.